Okay, so here we are. I've got my pocket closely aligned. I made a measurement from the other side to duplicate the edge of the pocket on this side. Not absolutely critical. It was really just a reference point for me to stick it in here. So what we really have to be sure is that the inside, top, and bottom of the stake support line up. So we're going to go ahead and make sure that those are level. I can already feel that they're not, and that has to come up a little bit. But we're going to check that. Then we're going to level the pocket. Once the pocket's level, we're going to mark a line on the wall, top and bottom, that's going to indicate where we're going to drill our holes for the plug welds on the back side. And once we have that done, we'll transfer this to the other side, basically, and then be able to mark where the inner box is, et cetera, and drill the plug weld holes for the inner stake pocket support. So I've got it clamped in place here. I had to peel this back, not peel it, sorry, bend it outward a little bit. It had shrunk in a little bit from when we pulled the old pocket out, all the hammering, beating, straightening, everything else. So when that's done, what we'll have to do is just hammer that back down once this pocket is welded in place, and then run a weld here. So there's a couple other things. I don't know if it'll show up on the camera. This is a little crooked because it's being held in by the clamp right now. But when these are flush against the wall, I did not cut these edges to follow the curve, okay? And there's a reason for that. It's the same on the top and the bottom. So what you'll see is when this is put in flush, there's actually kind of a sizable gap. It's probably going to be an 1/8 inch, maybe even a little bit more at the back end, and it gets closer to the front where we'll weld this on. And I did that intentionally. That's a drainage gap. I made it large enough that hopefully dust and debris and mud and whatnot should be able to drain out of there. Originally, they had a drainage gap, but it was basically just the lack of a weld. So it would allow water to drain out, but it wouldn't allow the accumulated garbage to drain out. So I just made that a little bit bigger. I'll try and get a shot of that after this is in place and we see it in situation here. So I'm going to go ahead and get some alignment tools, and we'll basically square this up and see where we are. Okay, as you can see, I moved the camera a little bit. I wanted to go further to the right so we could see this piece. And as you can see, it's pointing down, right? And I'm not worried about level as far as level to gravity of the earth. What I want is this piece to be 90 degrees to this, because that's going to indicate that the hole cut in the front and the hole cut in the stake pocket are in a same plane here. So we're just going to take our square and put it right below and tap this up or down as needed to get this in perfect alignment. And all I've got holding it up right now is a gun magnet, just a heavy-duty neodymium magnet wrapped in rubber. So let me grab my dead blow here. And we're just going to line up on this guy and tap this down. Whoop. Sorry about that. There we go. We're going to line up here and just tap this until we get 90 degrees right in here. Sorry, I'm going to be in your way, I think. Okay, pretty close. Little gap still. Okay, and we'll check it from the top. Now I do have to be careful because, of course, this whole thing is bent. And it is just a stake pocket, but I don't want my stakes all, I don't know, wibbly wobbly, I guess. Let's see here, we'll up a little bit. Hey, dead blow was catching the magnet was catching my dead blow hammer. That is pretty darn close. So now that we're here, we're going to square up the pocket to the edge and mark it. Not bad. So take the top of the pocket here. Now this marking doesn't have to be exact, because all this is marking the outer limits of where this pocket is. And we're going to come in to say about this deep and drill the through holes to plug weld that in place. And also pencil. Great note on this: when marking on surfaces you're going to paint at some point, use a pencil. Don't use a pen or a marker or anything else like that. A pencil will not bleed through finishes. If you use a Sharpie or a ballpoint pen or some other form of ink on here, the solvent's in the paint itself Basically those solvents are very similar, and it will bleed up through the paint, and it may not do it immediately. It might actually bleed up sometime later and appear down the road as a dark or hazy spot in your paint. On this, kind of don't care. Again, it's just going to be painted some flat color, black, green, whatever it is. I haven't decided yet. But if you're painting something you want to have a nice look on, just use a pencil. So, all right, so we're going to go ahead and pull this back out, which is going to cause a lot of scratching here. So let me show you what we've got. Here is that gun mag that I mentioned, and these things are great for body work. I mean, just forget gun and whatever, they pick up a lot of grinding dust, but because they're rubber coated, and I've put a piece of Velcro on the back, soft side Velcro, and that's not for Velcro purposes, it's so that when I stick it to something, I have a soft surface back here. Obviously all full of grinding material right now, normally a soft surface, but that way I can put it on a metal surface without damaging it, and helps hold things in place, and they're really, really, really strong. So, okay, let me get that out. We'll get this guy out. And all I'm going to do, it's in here, I'm just going to slide it down, okay? I don't need to remove it for anything. So in here you'll see that I have primed and painted internally. Scuffed some of it off here, but that's okay because we're going to weld here anyway. So this is really just so I can get at least a starter of a good finish inside, something protective. What I'm going to do after this is done and all welded in place is I'll clean it out really well, blow it dry, and I'm going to get some like internal frame rail treatment and basically spray around in here to hopefully get the nooks and crannies that I may have missed in just this prep work. This is just trying to add some extra life. That's all that painting is really for. Okay. All right, so I'm going to pause, come back, and we'll drill our holes through here, and top and bottom, and then again drill the center holes where needed, and we'll be ready to weld this in place. I have a nice shiny line for the top and bottom edge of this pocket, and we're going to go through and drill some holes in here, and we're going to want to get a third hole that's going to be up behind here a little bit, but we're going to attack that one from the other side once we have a couple indicator holes through here. So I'm going to go for about 4 holes in this, and we're just going to start out by drilling about a ½ inch down. Okay, here we are on the other side. Now we have a row of holes indicating where our 4th hole will go, so we don't have to worry about high, low, wherever we are. Okay, now these holes are probably plenty sufficient for the amount of weldment that we're going to need. But I'm going to enlarge them with this step bed anyway. And here's the main reason. It's not actually for a stronger weld. Well, it is and it isn't. Trying to plug weld this hole, what's going to happen is the weld material is going to fill that hole very, very quickly. And it's going to melt into this surrounding material very, very quickly. But we can't guarantee necessarily that we're adhering to the material on the other side. So if we if we drill this a larger hole, we can weld around the edge of the hole, and essentially what we're doing is a fillet weld all the way around the edge then, and that is a much greater chance of getting deep penetration into the material on the other side. So let's just go ahead and enlarge these. All right, so there we go. We now have our holes for the outer flange of our pocket, and we're now going to take a couple measurements, and we're going to drill 5 holes here for the pocket itself. Here we go. Just had to put a couple tools away that were in the way. So what we're going to do is we're going to transfer this whole location to the other side. Oop, hey, there we go. So we were a little short. We just make it there. Just that one. And this isn't highly accurate. This is just giving us an outline. Here we go. So we've got that. And then we'll get our depth from the top of the pocket. I got to double check that. Our hole on the outer edge of the lip on the other side, if you recall, the hole, the top of the stake pocket is actually a 1/4 inch up from that lip. So we are 2.5 here, so we're going to be 2.25 inches on this side where the top of the stake pocket is. So we'll just come on over, move this, give us 1, 2 1/4. My magnet down here was getting in my way. Oh, I see. Yeah, we're come around the other side of the camera. My square is just a hair too long when I'm in here. I couldn't just follow the line straight up. So we just made our marks at 2 1/4 on each side that I can't see now that I'm over here. That one and that one. Okay. And we'll just come mark our edge. Okay, and there's essentially the top edge of our stake pocket on the other side. So we can drill our holes and be able to plug weld that one right on. Okay, so you can see we've got the top edge clamped on both sides. I've got my clamps, again, held up in the air with one of those big magnets I mentioned. And I have access to this hole, and I'm probably going to wait to do this hole until I can move a clamp. There's a little bit of space there. I want to squeeze them as tight as I can. But this one and this one are held very, very tight against the metal. That'll help when I go ahead and move a clamp up the surface here to clamp the 2 holes that are here, clamp between them for welding. So I'm going to go get hooked up. We're going to weld these guys. And we're going to go through after we get those guys done and just work our way down, welding each of these. We're going to do these ones and then these ones, and I'll weld these last. I'm going to clamp that whole thing tight to be sure that this is pressed firmly against the inner wall. And there we go. So let me go get the welder set up, and we'll start welding here. We'll see if this comes out on camera. I don't know if it will or not. There we go. One stake pocket firmly welded in place. Get those grounds smooth afterwards, come back to the body putty, paint prime. Again, not perfect, especially on the inside, because I'm probably going to just bed liner this, and a lot of small imperfections are just going to disappear, you know, like small dips and whatnot, but we'll make it nice. So, all right, going to come around the other side, and we'll go ahead and get set ready to weld the outer edges of the pocket in place. So what I'm going to do is tack this in a couple locations. I'm using 030. I probably should have switched to 23 for this to get a nicer weld. So I'm going to have some grinding to do on that. It's going to be a higher profile that I wanted, but it's one weld. So One weld I just can't get close to. Okay, let's try this. See what these magnets are good for? I just hold things in place like this. Move them out of the way. And when doing things like this, using the metal, I mean, you know, obviously clamping it flat, right? But when I use aluminum, it does a couple things. One is, should I happen to slip and hit the aluminum, they won't weld together. I'll get a bad weld in that spot, but I don't have to worry about trying to get this back off. Plus, this acts as a really nice heat sink when you're welding thinner material. So. If you're welding close to the edge of something and you want to avoid burning paint back in, clamping a piece of aluminum along the edge can really help keep it cool further in. All right, that's not too bad. That'll grind out okay, and then we'll come back and fill in the little pieces as needed. And we're going to come along and hit that with a sander so we can grind that front, or weld that front edge in, and we'll be good to go. Okay, headphone alert here. We're gonna hit the die grinder with our 3M Cubitron discs. These things are amazing, by the way. They outgrind anything on these little air discs. These are amazing. All right, so I'm just gonna give a cleanup along this edge so we can get a weld going here. Okay, here we go. I'm going to relocate. Hopefully give you guys a better shot of this piece, as well as give me a little more access. There we go. And like I said, we're going to weld this piece right here. So we've ground the paint away. Got our ground hook back up. Helmet on. Ooh, walked right away from that one. Damn, that's too bad. I'll have to grind that later. There we go. We'll grind that down, be smooth a little bit later. Definitely could have welded better, but with the crap in the way, and I'll show you in a second here, and the camera and everything else, it was just easier in this instance just to weld it quick, and I'll just come back and grind it. I got a nice round grinding wheel that'll get in there really nicely. So I'm not going to grind the whole thing, but this is this wheel I picked up recently, and it's really nice. You see, it's got media all around the outer edge and a round profile. It's really nice for getting into areas like that. So again, headphone alert here. You can see it does a really nice job. When we move the camera, there's obviously more cleanup to do on that. but it does a nice job of rounding that out. Okay. All right, now I'll tell you about my stuff in the way here. I've got the bed, and I have my gantry crane hooked, and it's still holding it up there. It is a little rocky this way, and I didn't want to just leave it like this while working on it, fear of it falling down on me. So I still have it up there. So everything I do, I'm constantly walking around this workspace here. And I originally set that up because I was working on this pocket and didn't feel like kneeling all the time with this thing on the floor. So that was about it. So I'm going to clean that grind up a little bit, clean the front grind up a little bit, prime it, put some paint on it, and this pocket's done. So I forgot to take any video footage of the final outcome. I did grab a few snapshots throughout though, and I threw them at the end of the video here just so you could see how this project ended with the stake pocket replacement. Overall, I'm happy with it, and I think it came out pretty good. You know, once it's got a Line-X bed liner on it or something like that, I don't think you're really going to see much of the repair.